Welcome to Topics in Social Work, Human Sexuality. I'm your Professor Christopher Spicer at the University of Buffalo. Why this course? Well, sexuality is a basic component of physical, psychological, and emotional identity. This course explores issues of sexuality and prepares social workers to deal with these issues in their work. Social workers are often leaders of social changes that are positive for individual and community health. So, in short, you guys are going to be very important people to the issue of sexuality because you are social workers. And, you're in a society where sexuality is a taboo topic, and we seem to have a lot of trouble making sound pro health policies and delivering sound pro health services to people that have needs related to sexuality. So you're going to be doing this, and it's going to be very important. Again, my name is Christopher Spicer. A little bit about myself. I was in the military police, 91 to 99. In the military police, I learned a lot about domestic violence, sexual assault, um, hypermasculinity, and a lot of different, points of view that people have. So, they do inform my approaches, and they do give me a lot of sort of frames of reference for stuff and understanding things. So I thought it was important to let you know that I did that. My undergraduate work was at UB, and I did a major of psychology and another major of health and human services, community mental health. And I took a minor also in the philosophy of professional ethics. And my graduate work was at Medaille College, and I received a master's in organizational leadership. Um, and that also informs social work practice. I think you're going to see why organizational leadership is really, it's a leadership degree. It's about inspiration. It's about getting things done, project management, working with teams. But it's also working within organizations and policy making and that sort of thing. It's going to be important to social workers because you're going to find as a social worker that policies can really tie your hands and stop you from doing things that you know you should be doing for your client, or you know stopping you even from just becoming a better service provider. So there's that. But my real expertise for this particular course comes from my profession, and that's at Planned Parenthood. I started working there in 1998 as a sex educator, and I did a lot of work with, at-risk youth in different parts of Buffalo and Erie County, and then I was a training and curriculum specialist, and that's more focusing on program development, curriculum writing, training other professionals on how to do sex education and about sexuality. In terms of course objectives, first we're going to explore the psychosocial, historical, and political and cultural context of human sexuality. Again, this is a taboo topic. It's something that we're going to have to learn to navigate. We're going to identify the role of social work in advance in advocating for social justice and human rights, and to addressing oppression in the arena of human sexuality. We're going to know how to explore sexual and gender diversity, including orientation, gender identity, gender role, and biological sex, and examine biases, range and diversity of attitudes and practices, interpersonal obstacles, beliefs, and values in the area of human sexuality. We're going to describe biological aspects of sexuality, including sexual response cycle, anatomy and physiology, and sexually transmitted infections, HIV included, and social work. We're going to be able to develop a framework for understanding human sexuality across the lifespan, including sexuality in younger, older, and disabled people. Also, we're going to understand sexuality and sexual violence and trauma, and how they impact social work practice. We're going to be able to state best practices of social work as they pertain to sexuality. Sorry, my phone's ringing, and I don't want to stop recording, so I'm just going to keep going. Sexuality, terminology, and theoretical perspectives and diversity is going to be our first course content. Sexuality and biology, puberty, reproductive anatomy, sexual response, reproductive health. Then we're going to cover sexually transmitted infections, probably more than you want to know about it, but I can tell you everything that you need to know and more about sexually transmitted infections. So, sexuality, young people in social work. We're going to be not focusing a lot on, but we are going to be talking about, people learning about sex and sexuality, and when they need to know things. And a lot of that is at a younger age rather than an older age. So we're going to be talking a lot about young people learning about sexuality and addressing sexual issues. We're also HIV and social work. I mean, that's HIV is a standout STI. We're going to learn how to understand and assess sex education, and the reason for that is, as a social worker, when let's say you're working at a charter school or People Inc. or somewhere, and you're a social work and sexual issues come up, or somebody gets pregnant or gets an STD, or people are talking, or kids are having rainbow parties in the bathroom or something, and you're the social worker and everybody's freaking out, and guess who they come to? Yeah, you. So you're going to have to understand what you can be gained by sex education, and understand that there are evidence-based programs, that there are research-based programs, there's best practices models, and unfortunately there's a lot of really horrible sex education out there that is just stuff that people pull out of their areas. Okay? So we're also going to talk about healthy versus unhealthy relationships, sexual violence and social work, older people in social work, disabled people. Um, Older people and disabled people are two populations of people that in our culture we prefer to look at as asexual. We don't want to think of older people as having sex, but they have sex. People in nursing homes have sex with each other. And it's something that we've seen, and I've actually gone and done programs with older people talking about condoms and that sort of thing. And disabled people, again, that's another thing we're going to be exploring. And why do we look at them as asexual, and how do we serve them best? And then finally, sexuality, best practice in social work. We're going to be figuring out what is the best practice. The textbook, sexuality remains a neglected and largely taboo area within practice, but it can be a demanding aspect of social work. I kind of mentioned how that could be already. Social workers may be familiar with the importance of issues such as racism and ethnicity, but sexuality is also a very significant part of people's lives, closest relationships, and sense of identity. This valuable resource, the textbook, introduces the topic using a combination of perspectives to consider sexual diversity and examining related issues across the life course, including sexual orientation, disability, HIV, sexual abuse, mental health, and sexual exploitation. The other thing I like about this book is that it is actually from the UK. So this book is probably the best book on sexuality and social work that's out there. However, when you're reading, you're going to see a UK approach. So sometimes they're going to be talking about legislation that was passed, and this law and that law, and it's not a law in the United States, it's a law in Great Britain. So we're going to have to be careful to watch that, to learn about it. This allows us a perspective outside the U.S. culture from which to look at sexuality and examine our own professional practices. The thing about taboos, in a culture, is that they can consume your point of view. They can limit your ability to address problems if you don't step out of, those limits. Now, course structure. Live logins will be available, but not required. Presence in class for this course is determined by participation in an academically related activity. So that's your assignments and discussion boards and that sort of thing. Reading and study questions. Now these study questions, like 20% of your grade, there's also a rubric in UB Learns that tells you exactly how I'm going to be grading these papers. Like there's 5% grammar, there's some content, some format. But I want these in APA format, and I want at least 3 sources cited for each of these. So I don't want you just relying on the book. This is master's level work. We did the reading, and now instead of just spitting back that, we're going to answer some questions that are going to take us beyond the text. Okay? So I want you to use the library. I want you to log on, use that online library, get those resources, expand your mind, expand your frame of reference in these study questions. Then there's reflection papers. Now these are post-class assignments. So you did the reading and the study questions and had the online course that you either participated in and or viewed. And then I want you to write a 2-page reflection paper on class material presented. So your grade on each paper here will be determined by how well you summarize your learning and present your assessment on the information, as well as your thoughts on how useful or not you believe the information will be to you in your social work. Again, this is APA format. Um, Use citations liberally. If you're going to be talking about a study or a book or something like that, cite it. Cite it, cite it, cite it. In terms of summarizing your learning, that's what I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to summarize what you think I think you learned. I want you to summarize your learning. I want to know what you picked up and how you think you're going to use it. So, as far as content is concerned, I'm not going to be checking off, oh, hey, you didn't mention this one thing that I mentioned for 2 seconds in my presentation. I'm not doing that. This is your takeaway, okay? So that's what the paper should be. The next thing is virtual study groups. So this is going to be 25% of your grade. And with this one, we're going to be taking a trauma-informed perspective. Now, trauma-informed approach to social work is important because it can increase the sensitivity with which you provide services, as well as give you and those with whom you work valuable insight into values, choices, and behaviors that may only be understood when considering the impacts of trauma. In your virtual study groups each week, you'll contribute to a group discussion online in which you will pose questions, answers, and challenges to ideas presented in the reading and in class as they pertain to a basic trauma-informed perspective. So you're going to have to look this stuff up if you haven't already encountered or had this experience, trauma-informed experience or learning in social work education so far. So you'll be provided with challenge problems for which the group must generate solutions consistent with a trauma-informed approach. It's expected that all statements to be accepted as facts or as best practices in social work be backed up with a citation. So if you're going to bring something up in the post, just drop a citation in your post. Okay, you don't have to post in APA format, but if you're bringing up information that you read, it's not acceptable to say, I think I read somewhere or I once heard. It's either in your opinion this or this is where I read this and this is what I think would be a great solution. Okay? And then 35% of your grade is going to be a final paper. So in a minimum of 7 pages, APA format, you'll select a topic or issue covered in the course. So you're looking for that stuff. And it's sort of an extension of these study groups that we've done. You're going to apply the concepts of trauma-informed care to that topic or issue. So it will cover the potential benefits and potential drawbacks of applying the approach. I want a minimum of 7 sources cited while making your case. There's the final course letter grades. So, if you want the A, or if your school, I know that there's some people that aren't from UB, if you get an A plus, 96 to 100. All right, A minus, 92 to 95.9. This is all stuff, and this is a standard grading scale. It's pretty much content and format. Like I said before, citations are a really big deal. To me, APA format isn't really so much about knowing how many spaces come after a period and what goes between the parentheses when you're doing a citation. It's more about, I did the work. I looked up these studies. I'm citing these studies. I know what I'm talking about. My points are well backed up. Okay? So that's why format is part of it. And 5% of all of your written assignments are going to be grammar. And the reason for that is if you can't write well, then you're not going to be able to get or hold a job, because people don't take you seriously when you don't write properly. So I want to make sure that you're paying attention to your written material. I want good grammar, I want proper sentences, and I don't want a ton of misspelled words, which should be no problem because Microsoft Word can do spell check and grammar check, which makes it even worse when you hand in something that isn't checked. Okay, so please do that and make sure that that is a professional standard of yours. Finally, late assignments. It's from the minute after an assignment is due, it's you're going to submit it through UB Learns. From that minute for a 24-hour period after that, you will lose 5 points, and then the next 24-hour period is another 5 points, and so on. All right. Finally, academic integrity. Just if you're presenting other people's ideas, cite it. Cite it using APA format. I'm not looking for you to be a genius who is super creative and has all these wonderful ideas. There's no reason in this course that you should want to steal anybody's ideas, either on purpose or inadvertently. So just be careful. I do check things like that. I'm also extremely well read on the topic of sexuality, and I know a lot of the authors that you're going to be reading, and I'll recognize their work if you're stealing, well established ideas. So please just don't do it. Finally, contacting me. There's my email address. Everybody has it. You can do it through UB Learns as well. I'm giving you my cell phone number because I want you to be able to, I just want you to have that kind of access to me if you have needs. I know graduate school can be pretty stressful, and if you're having a problem with an assignment or something like that and email's not fast enough, um, well, I just don't want you to worry. So give me a text. The first time you text me, don't forget I'm not going to have your information in my phone. So tell me who you are when you text me. Or if you really feel the need to call me, go ahead and call me. Please not at obscene hours. I go to bed, um, like 10. Okay, so email me with any questions. I get back to you in the same day, unless you email me at night and then it's the next day. But I do check, you should be within 12 hours I get back to you. And we can also set up virtual office hours as we go. We're going to figure that out. Now, if you have questions, please go ahead and shoot them to me by email. And otherwise, welcome to the course. We're going to have a great time. We're going to learn a lot of awesome things together, and we're going to get you ready to address issues of sexuality out there as a social worker. All right, well, thank you and welcome, and talk to you soon.